Red 2 standing by, all 4 lit, and in the green, welcome back to Bomberman 64. We have a pretty quick to complete level coming up and a doozy of a boss fight. Shiny, slippy, icy floor does have ice physics, but they're not bad all things considered. It could be a lot worse. That said, I am never a fan of ice physics in pretty much any appearance. But we can basically just head straight through here. We have to do some sliding along icy slopes in order to get where we need to go to clear this level. Head down here and make a turn to the right, making sure you don't fall off in the process, and it's just there. And onto that switch we go to slowly bring the chairlift down from the boss's arena. Don't ask me how it just sort of floats there in midair. The boss fight is a pain in the backside. You have a very short time frame in which to defeat it. My suggestion is that basically you grab a heart, as you'll see I have done, and you pretty much bum rush it. You can grab your heart later on. Please pick it up again in the middle of the fight and you're good to go. So we make our way back here through this entryway. Rotate that, go around here, be very careful not to slip off the edge, the camera doesn't want to respond, and there we go. One problem with the Wii U's control sticks as opposed to the C buttons, they're either too precise or not precise enough. But what can you do? It's what I've got and I've got to work with it. Anyway, here is our boss, Mantis, a real pain in the backside. You have to destroy those scythes, you have to blow off its mask, and you have to take out its underbelly. We've taken out its mask, so we'll be looking to take care of those scythes. And it has a very bad habit of running away and just sort of messing you up by going in completely the wrong direction. So one of its scythes is down, but they can still hurt you. Bait it into its attacks. We'll have to close in on it. Got it. Now we'll press at the main body. That should have got it. Right, so we have pissed it off sufficiently, and when it hits one heart left, it will break the floor. I didn't get to show this in the actual battle, but when you fall through the floor, Sirius will actually save you, making things a bit easier. And we've got it! This time I've actually managed to take it out. Almost every other time I've done that, I managed to somehow not hit its underside. One time I killed it and I ran out of time because it was still dying. Anyway, the final chain is destroyed. Black Fortress is open to us. But what we're looking to do is go back in and get the gold cards. So I will see you in Black Fortress once this is all done, and I'll be post-commentating my adventure here. So this video is going to show off a little trick to getting the gold card for killing 30 enemies. Basically just run back and forth in this area and you'll get it very easily. The main discussion topic is going to be on boss battles of all kinds, and what makes them great. Everybody's going to have some grand memories of boss battles. For example, a lot of the battles in Gold and Silver stand out for me. Being able to face the gym leaders of Kanto again was great, coming on the heels of the Johto gym leaders, which weren't all that strong sometimes. Of course, everybody remembers Whitney's Miltank for being that one boss, basically. Though I admit I never had trouble with it from the first time I played, because that was just going through the game soloing it with Totodile, which you admittedly could. And then every other time I'd been doing a whole lot of team building, which I think is actually what that boss fight is meant to teach you about. Using team building and stat boosting. Clefairy's a good option to set up on. But it sets the mood quite nicely with some good music, though I admit that I do prefer the Generation 1 and Generation 3 gym leader and battle themes most of all. I seem to have a lot more fondness for those particular battles, probably because, unfortunately, the Johto gym leaders aren't a great test until you get to the battleground equivalent, basically the fighting dojo, in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. That's where those boss fights really start stepping up. But of course, Gold and Silver had the fight with Red, one of the most iconic boss fights in the entire Pokemon series. That battle atop Mount Silver, with the champion battle theme playing, is a perfect demonstration of setting the atmosphere for a boss fight. It's simple, but it works. You have that great music, an isolated chamber, with the great champion and an up-and-coming Pokemon trainer challenging him. The torch is being passed, and it's a great fight as a result of it. It just works so well, and the improved team he has in the remakes just makes things even better. And when it comes to other games, you've got so much great atmosphere as well. Like, that simple but still effective is perfectly demonstrated in the final battle of Super Mario 64. Okay, the final Bowser fight doesn't look fantastic, but it just works so well. You have this amazing atmosphere, the giant background in the middle of this almost psychedelic sky. Bowser himself definitely has a psychedelic look to him. And it can be pretty tough. You've got to get that timing just right, and it amps up the tension. As a result, even though it is very basic, the atmosphere just works so well. And likewise, the atmosphere, the music, and the way it plays out saves the unfortunately way too easy final stage of the final boss fight in Super Mario Galaxy 2. Of course, the final bosses are probably going to be the most memorable for a lot of people. I mean, growing up with the Nintendo 64, 3 of the most iconic boss fights, in my opinion anyway, came from there. You have the aforementioned battle with Bowser. You have the final battle with Gruntilda in Banjo-Kazooie, which kickstarts basically with an awesome upbeat mix of the Teddy Bear's Picnic, which was used as the basis for the Gruntilda's Lair theme, and it just gets even more intense from there, showing off just how good Grant Kirkhope was, and still is with his compositions. And then you have the Ganon battle in Ocarina of Time. The fight against Ganondorf is a bit ordinary, especially compared to Phantom Ganon, who actually moves around the arena and changes his attacks up a bit more. But when Ganon appears, you have this gorgeous setup. The sense of hopelessness and despair in the atmosphere is incredible. It's as if the game itself doesn't think you're going to win this. Also, there are the remote bombs, which fell off. Handy to know where they are, but you will have to be a bit more daring than I am. Anyway, that is still one of the best final boss fights in the entire Zelda series, and probably in terms of challenge, if you're not using double defense, it's the best one so far, though I do appreciate Ganon in A Link to the Past. Admittedly, I have found a lot of them a bit on the easy side, probably because I am fairly experienced, and while I do consider Wind Waker's a bit on the easy side, probably because you didn't have as many dungeons, I've got to give it points for the spectacular atmosphere and, well, story-based atmosphere it sets up. You have seen, there's our first gold card by the way, you have seen Ganondorf have everything he's worked for snatched from him right at the last. He's condemned to drown with Hyrule, and he's just snapped. He's looking to take someone, anyone, with him as he drowns with the kingdom he cherished for so long, the kingdom he desired. And it doesn't matter that he's not particularly powerful. It's just the way it's set up, that last desperate assault of a man who has lost everything. That's what I appreciate about it. From that thematic point of view, another fairly easy gold card, it is absolutely beautiful. Twilight Princesses, I don't think it has as much justification for being as relatively easy as it is. I mean, again, I'm speaking from the experience of being a Zelda veteran. You might not have found it as easy when you were playing through, and I completely understand that. Easy and hard will ultimately be subjective based on how much experience you have. There's a custom part, by the way. Though, I'd probably say when it comes to the Zelda series, I think probably one of my favourite final boss fights. While I do think the Ganon one is the best in the series, Ganon from Ocarina of Time, I still think the revamped Nightmare battle from the remake of Link's Awakening is really good, because it sort of presents almost a more vulnerable side to Link, that he is still only human, he has all these fears and worries, but he's still strong enough to stand up to them. The nightmares try and embody everything he's afraid of. They probably wind up putting Moldorm in there because everybody hates Moldorm. The Gel is an opponent Link can't defeat through conventional means. They thought that the valor of his sword would falter if he was confronted with such an enemy, or something like that. Getting a little bit philosophical there. But he gets past what he allegedly fears, and still stands up for what he believes in and the people he cares about. That's what true courage is, and that boss fight demonstrates that very well. Now, I admit most of the boss fights in Fire Emblem, which I do like a lot, aren't necessarily that spectacular because they're just dolled up enemies, and it's mainly the ones you create with your little bits of headcanon that can be fairly fun and have some sort of thematic meaning. For example, when playing Fire Emblem Awakening, a very good way to create an enjoyable boss fight is to have Sayori fight Exilus in the final chapter of the Walhart arc and just gut him for everything he did to her brother. It's incredibly karmic. That's probably where Fire Emblem gets its boss fights, its best boss fights. Those catharsis factors and the story elements as well, such as, and I admit there are spoilers coming up for Genealogy of the Holy War, the fight with Arvis. Arvis thought he was doing the right thing, but by the time you fight him, he's been brainwashed into marrying a woman who he is actually related to, Sigurd's wife Deirdre, and has been controlled into burning Sigurd alive. He's been freed from that brainwashing to realise what he's done. He's horrified by what he's done, but he can't get out of it. He can't escape it, because the main villains basically have him on a leash. And in that boss fight, though he's putting up a good effort, he just wants someone to end him because he is so utterly broken. That's the sort of sense of atmosphere you can get in those boss fights. All those little details, when you find that boss fight that just works, that's the most important moment. And of course the atmosphere, the music and everything like that, that works as well. Oh, wait a minute, we've actually gone to the death montage. Not much today. No, come on! So I wasn't paying attention to the time on that one, but this one was just as tragic. Anyway, I've sort of cut things a little bit short when it winds up coming to my interesting explanation on boss fights. I hope I wasn't rambling too much. Maybe I'll discuss it a bit more later on, but we are ready to move towards Black Fortress. As always, thank you very much for joining me, and I hope my insights have been of value. Until next time, this is Red 2 returning to base.